Yes.
So, okay. And
He and Malcolm are both here.
Okay, so you recall both of them?
Yes.
Do you have any idea if they're gonna go back for the final, or is that not?
Well, obviously, we'll see what happens today and probably get a better feel as these guys start to get worked on. But we brought them here, obviously, for the game tonight.
Got it. And then as far as the injuries, I talked to Derek briefly post-game last night, and he seemed to think that it was hurting, but you obviously gotta wait and see today. What, did you get a update?
I think the next morning is always tough
Right.
to deal with those. I think probably, time frame, we'll probably have a better idea today, to be honest with you, because I think he's definitely got some swelling there. And I think, happens, then you're in the air, then you're trying to sleep with the time we got in, then he's seen medical this morning. So, he's in some discomfort right now, but as he starts to get treatment, I would say probably with a better idea, but those things usually the first 24 hours are usually the worst.
And what happened with Goran?
Kind of twisted his ankle a little bit, but also some rest for him.
And Caruso in or out?
Crusoe's in.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Billy, I know you touched on this a little bit yesterday when we talked about Io and just kind of the minutes he had yesterday. There's been with Patrick and Io and some of the other, Javante, there's, as this season has progressed and you kind of try to look to see which units are gonna, are you a coach that explains, hey, tonight I'm probably only gonna give you like 5 minutes because of matchup, or grab them after the game and say, hey, the reason we did this and this, or do you expect those guys, you're in an NBA locker room, you're a man, conduct yourself like a man. If you don't play a lot that night, you don't play a lot, just always be ready. I mean, how do you handle that? How do you handle that communication part of it, especially with the younger guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'll communicate with them if they're not going to play. Obviously how the game's going and how they're playing will dictate, how many minutes they, ultimately, will get. I thought Goran gave us really good minutes. He was playing pretty well. I thought Kobe had a really good first half. That probably hurt, Iowa a little bit
Right.
in terms of his minutes. But, I think as it relates to those two guys in particular, you're always communicating with them. But if there was some reason where they weren't going to play, I would certainly have a conversation, say, listen, this is what we're doing tonight. Here's where we're at. This is what's going on. This is how we see the future.
With Io, it felt like the first couple of weeks he started off very capable, and I'm not saying he has played bad, but it's almost like, and I've talked to him a couple of times, it's almost like it's not in his head, but his feeling is, well, they got film on me now. I got to make the adjustment. They got film on me. I got to make the adjustment. And it seems like he's kind of playing differently. Is he playing differently, or they got film on him and he's not making the adjustment?
Yeah, I think for him, he has always been able to hang on his competitiveness. His competitiveness has always got him through. But I think the further you look the ladder from high school to college now to the NBA, that is a huge component that you have to have. But there's also the detail part too,
Right.
In terms of really getting an understanding of who he's guarding, trends, things that guys like to do, how he's being guarded, what they're doing to him. Are they going under on pick and roll? Are they gapping him? One of the things I thought happened for him last year was that he got a lot of catch and shoot opportunities. I think teams are closing to him a lot differently this year than they did a year ago.
Well, he was hitting at the beginning.
Right, and I think the other part of that too is, can he read closeout situations? Like a lot of times these younger players, they catch the ball, they see a guy running at them and they go and they drive, but they have no idea where the other 8 guys are on the floor.
Right.
In terms of should I be going left, should I be going right? I think these are all things that he can certainly pick up and get better at through experience, but I don't think there's any question that it's different for him from last year to this year in terms of he's become a pretty regular player that teams probably now are game planning for. And I think probably when Lonzo and Alex went out a year ago, there was still a lot
Right.
people were trying to find out on him, I think.
With Zach, obviously, second straight back-to-back he's playing. This one is different than the other one because you got the game on Friday. I'm not asking for any predictions on that, but
Yeah.
how encouraging is it that, he navigated the last one with the 2 days on either side of it, and now this, we didn't even ask you about it until tonight, so how encouraging is that?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Zach works really, really hard to take care of himself physically. Everything that he can possibly do to get himself ready to play is to play. Like, those decisions are going to be between Zach and the medical staff in terms of how he's feeling in the morning. And, they said that, I spoke to them after their meeting with Zach and talking to him that he was able to go tonight. So, it's positive. I think, the one thing we were trying to do, as I mentioned earlier in the year, we missed the first 2 games, was to try to get a handle on the fact that we just didn't have enough information of his tolerance level of what he was going through. I think the other part of it too is he's gotten his legs probably a little bit more under him. He's probably better trained and better conditioned than he was in the start of training camp because of the amount of time he spent rehabbing his knee and missed a lot of 5-on-5. So I do think there's some endurance and tolerance built up there, with him, physically, where he's kind of slugs back under him. But with the way the schedule falls, if it was very similar to the way it was in the beginning of the year, where we had all those back-to-backs in a short period of time, I don't want to sit there and say because he's playing tonight that's going to be a trend. We're always going to try to manage him and his health and how he's feeling. And I think the medical staff would understand, okay, you know what, here's his loads, here's what's going on. There's a pretty good likelihood that, he could start to feel some soreness here going forward. But so far he's managed it, and the medical guys have managed it pretty well.
What do you think of his activity level overall last night at both ends?
I thought he played great all the way around on both ends of the floor. He got off to a really good start offensively. I think he scored 11 points in that first quarter. I think he got it going a little bit. I kept him out there the whole first quarter because I think he was in a pretty good rhythm. I thought he made some really good passes offensively and found guys. And then I thought defensively his activity was really good. He was in position where he needed to be. I thought he was over there helping, putting his body in plays. He did all those kind of things. And again, it wasn't just him. It was everybody, I think. Had that. I mean, Goran had a really good play where he kind of came over and put his body. But we were there physically, last night. And the challenge for us is the consistency piece. Can we come back and do it again tonight and the next game and the next game and the next game? That's what you're really trying to build towards. It's it can't be okay. We did it. Now we got it all figured out. There's a lot of effort and work that goes into trying to play like that.
Bill, you saw DeJounte Murray early in his career. He got a steady diet of him in the Western Conference. Now that he's in the East, what does he do well? When you put a scouting report together, what is your message to your team about him and how he's blended in with Trey?
Well, I think earlier on in San Antonio when he was younger, I think one of the things that he probably struggled a little bit with was shooting the basketball. That was something I think that he has worked really hard on and has become, a good shooter, and he's become a very, very good scorer. He's always had good touch in around the paint with floaters and runners and those kind of things. He's a bigger, stronger guard who can post up and play close to the basket. And then he's always been an elite defender. He's got really, really long arms. He's got good activity. He reads and anticipates things. He's physical. So I think offensively, as his career has gone on, he has continued, I think, to improve and get better.
Billy, Dwayne Wade, obviously Chicago guy, nominated for the Hall of Fame today. I don't think you saw him at Marquette in a regular season game. I looked at the schedule and said. But what are your recollections of him as from that college guy to that pro guy? I think when you came into the NBA, it was probably near the end of the Heatles run. They were pretty much done. But what was always the game plan with him? I mean, where do you think he goes down in your mindset?
Well, I got a chance, obviously, to follow him closely with the Heat, just being in Florida for all those years.
Right.
And I think the one thing that always stood out to him was just his competitiveness. That's the thing, and his physicality. And he's not a. I think when you're up on him in person, it's not this overwhelmingly tall physical guy. And it looks like, he played like he was 6'7", 6'8" in a lot of ways. I thought he was reckless in a very positive way going to the basket through his body in a lot of plays. Just had an incredible will to win and a desire to win. Just with Haslam being there for all the years, been talking to him about him, just the mentality that he had. We'll go down, I think, as one of the greatest competitors to ever play the game, and also one of the greatest winners, with what he's been able to do.
Right.
And then I think the other thing with him too, I think and I don't know all the details, and he could probably speak to it a lot better than ever I could, but I think when he and LeBron and Bosh all got together, it just appeared there was a lot of sacrifice that they all made, but certainly he made, where he figured out how to play around those two guys. And to me, that's like the consummate part of being a winner, where he's in the prime of his career and could very easily say, no. This is me, but he was willing to do those things to win, and I got a lot of respect for guys that do that stuff at the level of player that he, was at. The most important thing to him when you watched him play is he wanted to win, and Spolster made a comment, it was he and I just being in Florida around each other quite a bit. He made a great comment about him. He said, Dwayne Wade can be really stubborn, but he's also really stubborn when you're down 25 too. And I think that speaks to him, and that's what I think a lot of great players have. They've got that stubbornness where they're just not going to they're going to find a way to figure it out, however they got to do it. And I think he always had that kind of mentality. And just my time being around him, I don't know him well. I saw him out in LA this summer a little bit, and we talked, but always seemed like a great guy. He was out there working out his son, trying to help him. Just seemed like an all-around person. And then a guy that really probably didn't get recruited very, hard. And then, you look at him taking Marquette at that time to the Final Four. There was just a lot of things when you look at the winning component. Forget about the numbers of his career. The winning, to me, was impressive.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Coach.
you. Okay.
Appreciate it.